can start. Okay, the sound is clear. Okay, I think we can start. Allow me to start by apologizing for the slight delay. My name is Tarek El Khouri. I'm the Regional Coordinator for Climate Change with UNEP, United Nations Environment Programme, West Asia Office. Welcome, everyone. I will be moderating this very interesting session. We will be talking about nature-based solution in climate change. We will be aiming at answering two questions. Those questions are, what are nature-based solutions and what space do they occupy in the context of responding to climate change? We will also be talking about how can upscale some of the key opportunity to capitalize on natural-based solution to address some of the society key sustainable development solution. Allow me to start by introducing the very interesting panel we have today, a diverse panel with a very high level expertise. So starting with Rumaisa. Hi Rumaisa. So Rumaisa is an Omani marine scientist and environmental activist. Ms. Rumaisa served as a board director of the only environmental NGO in the country, Environment Society of Oman, and actively worked with the Omani government on sustainable diversification strategies in food production. Rumaisa was recently named as a member of the Arab Youth Council of Climate Change, and she holds a master's degree from Harvard University, and she is coined as the first female soccer analyst, which is very interesting in the Arab world as well. We have also Dr. Kishan. Hello, Dr. Kishan. Dr. Kishan is the regional team leader for nature, climate and energy with UNDP Regional Hub for Arab State. He served as UNDP focal point for the Arab State for use of social and environmental standards and stakeholders grievance mechanism within UNDP cooperation. Dr. Kishan holds a Juris Doctor in Law, specializing in multilateral environment agreement and natural resource governance as well. We have also Dr. Hashim Stetiye, who is, hello Dr. Hashim, who is the Director of Research and Development at VIA Environmental Service. Dr. Stetiye has worked with over 12 countries across the MENA region. His core area of expertise include waste management consulting, environmental contaminant management, emission monitoring. He holds a PhD degree in environmental soil chemistry from Louisiana State, and he has written many publications, focusing on soil atlas, nanoparticles, sludge and metals, etc. I'm cutting the biography short because we are running out of time. I'm very sorry. Last but not least, we have Shaima Rashid Bawana, who is the climate change analyst, working at the UAE Ministry of Climate Change and Environment. She joined the ministry in 2020 and currently leading the adaptation file engagement in the ministry. In addition, she is a member of the UAE Climate Change Research Network and the head of the network support team. Also, she assists in international engagement as one of the UAE national focal point under UNFCCC. Shaima holds a bachelor's degree in the environmental science and sustainability from Zayed University in Abu Dhabi. Unfortunately, we had also a fifth panelist that could not be able to join us, Ms. Maitha Al-Hamili, due to an urgent issue. So, allow me to start the discussion. The Secretary General of the United Nations, when he opened his high-level statement in UN, he said that we are on a highway to climate hell. We know by the UNEP emission gap report, by the IPCC, that we are within the current engagement in the NDCs, we will be reaching or we will be reducing only 6 to 11% if we implement what we have committed. And there is a big if there. Although if we want to keep the 1.5 or 2 degree alive, we need to reduce 30 to 40% by 2030. So we are in a critical situation. That's why natural-based solution and biodiversity restoration have a clear mitigation, adaptation, and biodiversity role, and it's a must to cope with the current situation as well as keeping the Paris Agreement alive. However, less than 5% of the climate finance is directed toward natural-based solution. Countries need to pledge through credible and to increase their climate ambition through the natural-based solution. This is a good starting point to start discussing with the panelists, and sorry for the long opening. Allow me to start with Shaima because it's very interesting. It will be very interesting to start at the national level. Shaima, the UAE published an updated NDC, and UAE is one of the very few countries who updated their NDCs recently. So this NDC carries a lot more emphasis on the role played by mangrove and seagrass as carbon sink. How carbon can they absorb or sequestrate?
All right, thank you, Tariq, for the introduction. So first of all, for a little bit of context, for instance, we have the mangrove is a dominant vegetation in the Arabian Peninsula, and then in the UAE, it's more dominant for the gray mangroves in the Emirates. So the heavy emphasis of NDCA in terms of mangrove or the blue carbon natural-based solution, it kind of portrays the importance of those ecosystems in terms of the environmental scenes in the country currently. So it's a bit rough in terms of kind of pointing out exactly how much we can benefit from the mangrove or the 100 mangrove plantation that we're currently UAE is aiming for. However, the nature-based solution benefit is not only for carbon capture. It does have another benefit in terms of preventing erosion for the coastal areas as well. So despite the 100 mangrove plantation project as part of the second NDC, as you mentioned, the contribution of those 100 mangrove will not be evident until they reach their full maturity. So let's say by 2023, 35, or by 2040 is when we will be able to see the full potential of the 100 mangrove plantation that the UAE is currently planning to do. And we're seeing roughly around 100 ton carbon oxide, like in terms of capture. So that's what we're looking at. So the expectation is that they will contribute to the reduction, will be significantly higher than our 2050 target, than the 2030 target. So they will benefit our 2050 target rather than our 2030 target in terms of the 100 mangroves. So I think essentially what we need to remember is the base solution offer many opportunities for ecosystem to thrive, water condition to improve, and shoreline to be preserved. So that's how we're looking at it, not from the perspective only from the carbon capture, because again, it needs to reach maturity to enable for us to see the benefit, also for it to protect our shoreline from erosion.
Well, I can only summarize that by win-win-win-win situation. I think, thank you very much, Shaima. Rumaitha, I mean, I would love to hear from you as well, as you are a marine scientist and you are leading the only NGOs working on environment and nature in Oman. So in your opinion, natural-based solutions still occupy a relatively limited space in most NDCs, right? So what can we do to expand adoption of natural-based solution in adaptation in particular?
So for me, I think we need to focus on three buckets. The first one is purpose. What's the purpose of actually having nature-based solutions and these mangroves, plantation, and so on? And I think for a lot of us, we tend to kind of get confused in terms of the sole purpose of nature-based solutions being biodiversity, when in fact it's actually way more bigger than that. And when the time comes of actually having large-scale adaptation methods for nature-based solutions, we need to ask ourselves as well, what sort of infrastructure needs to come in as well when it comes to that? What sort of other management objectives I need to kind of look into that? And connecting to that, the other bucket is as well collaboration and engagement. So we need to have a multi-stakeholder, holistic approach when it comes to nature-based solutions, not just, for instance, the government doing this and saying that they are going to be planting 10 million native trees, for instance. It needs to be a holistic approach where we're engaging civil society, the youth, the women, the private sector as well when it comes to really moving the needle when it comes to financing as well. And the last bucket, which is really connected, is engagement, political engagement. We need it at the highest level in order for us to kind of move forward with large-scale adaptation. And also, that really cultivates more in terms of the financing aspect. When we look at financing nature-based solutions, the first question that investors would ask is, how can I actually make money from the initial capex that I make, rather than looking at the whole economical benefit of actually having a nature-based solution approach to infrastructure and development in general. So I think the way that we could look into it is incorporating it from that view, that it's more economical. We're going to be helping improving livelihoods, increasing climate resiliency for all of us combined, and looking at that in terms of the services that this nature-based solution is going to provide once it's established.
Okay, thank you very much. This is very interesting. A quick follow-up question in 20 seconds. Is the Environment Society of Oman is doing anything on natural-based solution?
100%. So we're actually tying up with the government right now to plant native trees, and also looking at ways where we can incorporate the diversified sectors that the government is focusing on, specifically when it comes to fisheries, specifically when it comes to logistics and tourism, and how you can actually incorporate these infrastructures in a way that really incorporates the design and the objectives that we need in order for us to achieve those net zero targets as well for Oman and the region.
Okay, thank you very much. Allow me to move to Dr. Hashim, and I'm saving UNDP at the last because I have more heavy question when it comes to financing this nature-based solution. Dr. Hashim, some argue that nature-based solution can be more cost-effective than man-made infrastructure solution. So if emission reduction strategies through renewable and energy efficiency are center stage, in your opinion, can we fully decarbonize an economy without natural-based solution? And I'm asking you this because I know what BIA is doing and the link to that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tariq. It's a great pleasure to be here today amongst this distinguished panel. And I'm delighted to hear so far your thoughts on what I believe may be one of the most fascinating topics when it comes to climate change, mitigation and adaptation, nature-based solutions. The great thing about nature-based solutions is that they tackle the three main challenges, as my colleague said, of the Anthropocene: climate change mitigation and adaptation, biodiversity protection, and human well-being. So you get three for the price of one. That is, if they are properly designed and implemented. So at relatively low cost, you will have benefits of social, economic, and environmental context. Now, what is the key message from that? I believe the key message is that we should continue to implement and pursue nature-based solutions due to their vast importance. But we should not think of nature-based solutions as alternative to gray infrastructure or engineered solutions, but rather complementary. So the question is, where do you put nature-based solutions in combination with engineered solutions in order to achieve the social, environmental, and ecological benefits that you are looking for? So I believe a combination of green and gray is the solution in many contexts when it comes to nature-based solutions. A lot of times nature-based solutions function much better when you have engineered solutions as well. So you can have mangrove plantations, wetlands, but if also you have concrete infrastructure that helps those nature-based solutions work better, then you are actually achieving those goals that you are striving to achieve.
I mean, hearing you, the first thought come to my mind is like nature-based solution. It's really an element that can tackle post-adaptation and mitigation. So we can adapt by planting mangrove trees or etc. At the same time, we are reducing emission. We are going toward a concrete carbon thing that is reducing our CO2, etc. So thank you, Dr. Hashim. Dr. Kishan, Ramitha mentioned financing natural-based solution. And I know UNDP has a large team at the regional level and at the national level in all your offices that are working on nature and other area like climate change, etc. So as we know as well, half of the world GDP, around only 44 trillion, is moderately or high dependent on nature. Those 44 trillion depends on nature, creating some of 1.2 billion jobs. What is going to happen to these jobs if we don't meet Paris commitment? Therefore, we have a 3 degree of warming. Therefore, nature is damaged. What will happen to, in your opinion, and what should we do?
Right. Thanks, Tarek, for the question, and pleasure to be here. So the estimates are that over 130 million people will be pushed back into poverty or pushed into poverty by 2030 owing to the planetary crisis as a convergence of climate change, loss of biodiversity, water crisis, etc. So we're seeing expanding levels of poverty in the coming years unless there's big results on not just on climate and biodiversity in a few weeks as well from the next COP. So growing levels of poverty, loss of livelihoods, specifically when it comes to nature-dependent livelihoods, that's a significant part of this 130 million people of new poor, climate-induced poverty, particularly people that are in the agriculture sector, fishery sector, land-based livelihoods. So I think this is one major trend that's already underway. It's actually not something that's happening in the future, it's already happening. An element of that that's also important is that between 200 million, 500 million people will be displaced, of course, by the planetary crisis because of climate impacts, but also because of loss of ecosystems and those livelihoods. So we're seeing a loss of those livelihoods, greater fragility in those livelihoods, even if they're not totally lost in those livelihoods, they become more fragile, less income from livelihoods, possibly less productivity from the land, owing to climate change. So take the case of the MENA region, the Arab region. We've already seen this the last decade, if not longer, where we've seen a gradual reduction of the resilience of livelihoods across the region, especially in the agriculture sector and other sectors, where we've seen communities being displaced from rural areas to urban areas. Even in Egypt, we're already seeing this from some of the coastal areas where livelihoods are becoming more fragile and not as future-oriented, let's say. So people are losing hope in some cases of what's to come in the future for these rural livelihoods. So I think this is a major concern. So two actions I think that are important for this in the region and globally. One is really like moving from natural resource extractive-based model of development and basis of economic growth to a nature-based development model. So it's a paradigm shift, really, that's really needed. Apart from specific targets and engineering solutions, it's really the mindset, the paradigm shift, and having this transformational change in the policy level in the region to have this kind of a generational shift, really, in the way that we think about development and livelihoods. The second is really to focus specifically, I would say, on ecosystem-based adaptation. It's one aspect of nature-based solution, is to really see how protection and sustainable use of ecosystems can be used to support resilience of communities and livelihoods. And this is an area for innovation and technology and innovation solutions, I think, which our partners in UAE and elsewhere are coming up with some very innovative solutions. I think that's going to lead the future in the region.
Okay, well, so technology and finance are important element of when it comes to nature-based solution, but I'm very much keen, Dr. Kishan, to learn a little bit what UNDP is doing when it comes to nature.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the Arab region, we provide about $300 million of grants to our country partners across the Arab region. So we're active in, we have offices in most countries of the Arab region. We're providing since 1966. We've had programming across the Arab region on various aspects of development. Agriculture, livelihoods, water security, urban development, and of course, the last 30 years since the launch of the conventions, nature-based solutions and climate action. So in particular, the last 20 years, we've had dozens of projects, about $500 million of grants globally on climate adaptation, with a specific focus on ecosystem-based adaptation. So in the Arab region, just as an example, we're launching a series of new initiatives in the Arab region, specifically on this topic of ecosystem-based adaptation. As we speak here at COP27, we've launched, together with partners, a large-scale initiative, flagship initiative for the coral reef systems in the Gulf of Aqaba and the Red Sea, through the support of the Global Coral Reef Fund, and other bilateral partners to try to build the resilience of these critical ecosystems in the region, which are also a base, of course, for the tourism sector that's trying to recover here in Egypt as well. This is one example, but there's many examples across the region of trying to combat land degradation in communities that are suffering from expansion of drylands. A number of initiatives across the region in places like Sudan, Somalia, and elsewhere on climate resilient food systems and water systems in the agriculture sector, and various initiatives across the region actually, especially in crisis and conflict affected countries, I should say, as well in the region, trying to really mainstream green solutions into the restoration of ecosystems in places like Syria, Yemen, Iraq, Palestine, Libya, Somalia, where communities have been hit by various kinds of crises, including conflict, toxic impacts of war, where ecosystems have been devastated. So restoring these ecosystems is really critical if the livelihoods are going to be restored as well in the coming years.
Thank you very much. Allow me to move back to Dr. Hashim. So, following up on the negotiation, etc., we know that if we want to summarize the legacy of COP27 or the focus, it's climate finance and loss and damage. It's obvious to everyone. And you mentioned that engineered nature-based solution cannot replace element like gray infrastructure, etc., to answer the need and to be environmentally friendly. But still focusing on the finance, on the investment part. So coming back to nature-based and man-created solution, let's call it this way, which one has better return to investment?
Better return on investment. I mean, if you look at engineering solutions, you have a pretty good idea about how much you're putting in, and you have a pretty good idea about how much you're getting back in return. That's with your engineered solutions. You know, there's a high level of certainty when it comes to your return on investment. With nature-based solutions, on the other hand, they offer long-term solutions with economic benefits, of course, that may not be reaped at the time when the costs are felt. And so those economic benefits may be missed, and hence the return on investment of nature-based solutions are underestimated. Maybe that explains what you said earlier about less than 5% of the climate finance goes to nature-based solutions. And maybe this is time for us to actually carry out the exercise of economic valuation of the tangible assets of nature-based solutions, as well as the non-tangible benefits, non-tangible economic benefits, in order to have your stakeholders on board so that they see the total value of nature-based solutions, because like I said, it's a long-term solution. There are certain, sometimes it's very challenging to do economic valuation of certain benefits of nature-based solutions, such as human well-being. How do you measure human well-being? Biodiversity. I know there are elements of biodiversity, of course, that you can measure, but at certain times it may not be that easy. So in order for us, to compare apples to apples and pears to pears, you really need to capture the total valuation of nature-based solutions. And again, maybe this would really help unlock capital and finance for nature-based solutions once the stakeholders are fully aware of those total values.
Okay. Do you have any just small example, like project program in mind to support what you have said?
Well, I mean, we can always compare, for example, between nature-based solutions and engineered solutions. If you look at soil, for example, soil is one of the most important carbon sinks ever. The huge carbon sequestration comes from soil. Now, if you compare that to direct air capture, which is a technology used to capture air from the environment and from the air. It's still not at scale employed, and of course, it's still energy intensive.
Yes.
Okay, so why not preserve the soils at the same time pursue your direct air carbon capture or carbon capture and storage or whatever technology that is. But when you concentrate on preserving that natural resource, be it mangroves or wetlands or soils that are very important carbon sinks, and manage them in a way that ensures those carbon sinks remain as sinks rather than sources of carbon in the atmosphere. One example is regenerative agriculture. You know, if you implement regenerative agriculture, you're ensuring that the carbon remains in the soil and it is sequestered in the soil, whereas if you are doing modern agriculture, you're releasing the carbon back into the atmosphere. So this is one example. Another example, if you look at mangroves and how they act to protect against climate-related disasters such as wave actions and storms, they really act as natural barriers that protect the shorelines from erosion and other harms from events that are climate related. If you incorporate with those mangroves as well breakwaters, you know, which is the gray infrastructure, then you are again complementing to the role of nature-based solutions. I hope I answered the question.
You answered very well. I mean,
Thank you.
me as at UNEP, we work a lot on strategies, on policies. We support a lot of countries in capacity building, but we always miss providing. We take it for granted when we talk about strategic statement that some of the audience might. It will be more interesting for them to know exact and a concrete example to link what we are proposing. That's why I always try to have kind of hands-on example when I moderate panels. Thank you very much, Dr. Hashim. Allow me to go back to Rumaitha and continuing the same flow, concrete examples. So use volunteerism for climate change, play often, or adopt nature-based solution, such as you mentioned before, planting trees and conservation efforts, etc. How does the council that you are part of support this effort? And as we are moving toward COP28, any plans, any advice?
So I'll just touch on what Dr. Hashim mentioned a bit. So NYU actually is working currently on a model to communicate or frame ROI to businesses and investment companies in a way that makes sense to them. And they've actually come with a terminology called return on sustainable investment. And that actually captures, in terms of the business, really figuring out how they are actually contributing to sustainability and as well the environment in general, and how nature-based solutions can actually play a role. So that could be something that the audience might be interested in looking into, the ROSI, or return on sustainable investment, that is picking up. But as for the council itself, there's various efforts that we're working on. The first one that we launched is an open source curriculum on sustainability that anyone can actually take, be it a school-going kid all the way to an old person. You can actually just educate yourself more in terms of sustainability and how you could also contribute to nature-based solutions and be an advocate in your own organizations to actually empower yourself to advocate for nature-based solutions in terms of how you can connect it with your work. We also have a negotiators program that we're currently working on building and formulating to really enhance more and include more Arab youth in the negotiating table to be on the decision-making table and advocate for not only loss and damage and climate financing and whatever would be on the agenda in COP28. A very important thing that we're working on or have worked on is really research too, and unfortunately for us, we don't have a lot of empirical research figuring out what Arab youth think or what their sentiments are when it comes to climate change. So we've really done that body of work already where we surveyed all the Arab countries and really asked them, surveyed them, what do you think? And interestingly, number 2 after inflation is climate change. Everyone has anxiety when it comes to climate change. 82% anxiety when it comes to climate change. So there's a lot of ways that we can utilize this data as well in COP 27 and 28 to really advocate for what the Arab youth as well want when it comes to policy recommendations. And various other projects as well when it comes to encouraging more collective climate action. We have a youth network, climate network volunteers that has reached over 1,000 Arab youth at the moment. Some of them are actually here at COP. We've sponsored some of them to attend, and we're hoping to kind of increase more of them to really showcase all these projects that they're working on and also support them not only financially but also through expertise and offering all the support that we can have to them.
Okay, wow, that's very much impressive. And climate in use is something that I think a lot of stakeholders related to COP28 are interested in. And I'm very much also personally close to the Arab negotiator, and I see a lot of youth there. But I would love to see more. And such a training, it's really, really, really important and really interesting. Ms. Shaima, you mentioned what UAE is doing for natural-based solution with a focus on the mangrove. Can you tell us more about, if I'm not wrong, there is a treaty that has been signed by Her Excellency the Minister about mangrove in coordination with Indonesia and other countries? Just a few words if you don't mind.
Yeah, sorry. So we do have quite a lot of strategies that the UAE is developing in terms of nature-based solution and protected areas. We do have the National Biodiversity Strategy, and we do have the National Strategy for Coastal and Marine Environment. And then the one that you're talking or mentioning about, the Aim for Climate.
Yes.
So we do have a partnership between us and the Indonesian government to accelerate the work and relevant to kind of encouraging the countries to plant mangrove, and then showcasing the benefit of the mangrove in terms of carbon sink, also in terms of other matters and related to considering it's a breeding area for a lot of fish and shrimps, and it poses a protection area in terms of protecting the coastals from erosion as well. So we do have this partnership with Indonesia. We have currently a lot of members. Other countries have signed the treaties with us as well. And we had the official second launch here in COP as well. And we're looking into expanding the initiative to more countries to be part of it.
Okay, thank you very much. And this is also demonstrating the role that UAE is playing at the global level as well as at the regional level. I mean, planting mangrove is one of the most concrete example of natural-based solution in climate action. And I know the Gulf area is focusing on. I think we run of time, but still we were a little bit late, so we'll take like just 4 minutes to ask our panelists a concluding remark, just in 1 minute, one sentence or one thought on nature-based solution in climate action. So starting by Dr. Hashim.
I think for all the reasons in the world, we should pursue natural-based solutions. Not just for climate change mitigation and adaptation, also for the control of pandemics. You can talk about the role of deforestation on the spread of pandemics. The importance of nature-based solution is also for air pollution and reducing air pollution, water filtration. The reasons are endless. But our enthusiasm for nature-based solutions should not divert us away from the fact that we need to decarbonize our economies urgently, and hence we need a combination of green and gray.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Dr. Kishan.
Right. Well, just two things. One is I think that we've seen the last several years across the Arab region the explosion of solar solutions as a key solution for a green future green economy in the region. So I think the next several years on the road to 2030, I think, is the time really for the expansion of innovation and technology for nature-based solutions. I could see that this is something of a major opportunity, particularly, again, to stabilize and recover those livelihoods across the region that are really under strain, to help communities across the region to recover from the various crises that the region has suffered the last several years and continuing. But also just on the point that was mentioned, I think it's the sustainable investment track. I think this is going to be a major area of expansion in the region, actually, in the next several years on innovation and technology and scaling up finance, innovative finance around nature-based solutions across the region.
Thank you. Umaita?
So I would say that limited coordination and integration now is an important or major barrier in the way that we're actually looking at accelerating adaptation and nature-based solutions. We all need to work together. We need to be champions to actually champion nature-based solutions and include all stakeholders, not just the government, not just the private sector. We all have to collectively work together to really ensure that we can make a difference as well and accelerate adaptation at a larger scale.
All right.
Prima.
For me, I would say nature-based solutions still needs a lot of studying and to see how we can incorporate that with our other elements in terms of mitigation adaptation that are more common and known in the countries. So I think a lot of studies still needs to be conducted and see how to incorporate that and then to kind of build the strategy, legislation that can have that element of nature-based solution in it.
Okay, thank you very much. Allow me before I conclude, and this is something I should have mentioned at the beginning, to thank very much the Resident Coordinator Office in United Arab Emirates, especially Radian and his team, for helping us to convene each other and for leading on the preparation of this interesting panel discussion. It was one of the most interested one I participated in. And having a diverse background of panelists, it's always proving to have very rich discussion. So thank you very much, esteemed panelists. Thank you again for the RC office in United Arab Emirates, and thank you for the participant for being and for your attention. Thank you.